Have you ever looked at the world and felt like it was broken? Perhaps it was a moment of silence after an argument, a fleeting glance in the mirror when you didn't recognize your own eyes, or a quiet ache as you scrolled through headlines filled with anger, chaos, and fear, feeling deep down that something is terribly off. You blame the noise, the people, the system. But what if the world is simply a mirror, reflecting the war within? We often believe the world must change so we can finally feel safe, happy, at peace. But the truth is far more intimate and far more uncomfortable. The world doesn't need fixing. It needs witnessing. And the one who must do the witnessing is you. Maybe you've noticed it. The way someone's arrogance enrages you. The way another's sadness feels too heavy. The way you shrink around success or ache around joy. These aren't just reactions, they are clues, projections, fragments of your own psyche flung outward, like shadows cast on the faces of strangers. Because the ego, in its attempt to protect you, cannot bear to admit what it has buried. So it paints the world with your wounds. That man you call selfish, he may carry the part of you that was punished for wanting more. That woman who seems too emotional, she may be expressing the grief you've hidden for years. The world becomes a theater. And every person a mirror, not showing who they are but who you refuse to see in yourself. It's a hard truth. It demands courage, not to fight the world, but to feel yourself. Projection is a form of forgetting that the pain you see out there often began in here, in childhood, in silence, in that moment when you decided it wasn't safe to be fully, truly, vulnerably you. And so the world becomes a battlefield. Not because it hates you, but because it echoes you. Here's the paradox. The more you fight what you see in others, the more you disconnect from yourself. But if you pause, if you ask, what in me is being reflected right now? What old wound is whispering through this rage, this fear, this shame? You begin to reclaim your power. Because you can't change the world until you stop blaming it. And you can't stop blaming it until you remember who you truly are. Have you ever felt like you were living but not alive? You wake up, follow the motions, smile at the right times, meet expectations. But inside, there's a soft emptiness, a sense that you've drifted far from something sacred, from yourself. We are taught to chase achievement, appearance, approval, to perform, to please, to succeed. But no one tells us what it costs to abandon the soul, and so we trade our truth for belonging. We silence our voice to fit the room. We dim our light so we won't outshine others or scare them away. Slowly we become strangers to ourselves. The laughter feels hollow. The relationships feel scripted. The passions we once held, buried under layers of practicality and fear. This is not depression, it's disconnection, a spiritual forgetting where the heart once danced and now only echoes. Carl Jung called this state the loss of soul, a condition not diagnosed by medicine, but felt in the bones, in the quiet moments when nothing is wrong, and yet everything feels wrong. You start to ask questions you can't say out loud. Is this all there is? Why don't I feel more alive? Who am I, beneath all these roles? And these questions, though painful, are sacred, because they are the whispers of the soul calling you back home. The soul doesn't speak in logic or goals. It speaks in longings, in dreams, in discomfort, in the subtle ache that says, this life is too small for who you truly are. But the world doesn't teach us how to listen to that voice. Instead, we're told to numb it, distract it, explain it away. So we scroll, we shop, we stay busy. We surround ourselves with noise because silence might reveal the truth we've avoided, that somewhere along the way, we stopped being us. And the cost? A life that looks full on the outside, but feels hollow within. A heart that beats, but doesn't sing. But here's the quiet miracle. You don't need to go looking for your soul. You need only to remember it. Beneath the roles, beneath the pain, beneath the mask, you are still there. The true you, wild, gentle, real. Who are you? When no one is watching. Not the version you present at work. Not the one you offer in conversations, online or at the dinner table. Not the smile you wear when you're silently aching inside. But you, raw, unedited, unknown even to yourself. There is a word for the face we wear to meet the world: persona. It's the mask we create to survive, to be accepted, loved, respected. A performance carefully rehearsed in childhood and perfected through years of silent compromise. The persona is not a lie. It's a part of you, but it is not the whole of you. The danger begins when the mask becomes permanent, when you forget where the mask ends and where you begin. You become the peacemaker, always smiling, even when you're burning inside. You become the achiever, always performing, even when you're falling apart. You become the caretaker, always giving, even when your soul is starved. This is the invisible prison, because on the outside, everything seems fine, but inside there's a quiet despair, the kind that doesn't shout but slowly drains you. The persona protects you from rejection, from shame, from vulnerability, but in doing so, it disconnects you from intimacy, truth, and your real self. You might start to feel resentful, exhausted, unseen, but you don't know why. It's not the world that's ignoring you. It's the self you've hidden too well. The saddest part? Most people applaud your mask. They love how together you seem, how strong, how generous, how selfless. But they're loving your reflection, not your essence. And the longer you wear the mask, the harder it becomes to take it off. You start to fear that if you show your real self, flawed, messy, emotional, no one will stay. But here is the sole truth you've been aching to hear. You were never meant to be perfect. You were meant to be real. The real you is not polished. The real you has needs, has anger, has softness, has dreams, and most importantly, the real you is worthy of love without performance. Taking off the mask is terrifying, but it's also sacred, because only in your truth can you truly connect. Only when the mask falls can your soul rise. What do you do with the parts of yourself that you were told were too much? The rage, the jealousy, the neediness, the sadness that never made sense. Most of us were never taught how to hold these feelings, so we buried them. We wrapped them in silence, shame, and forgetfulness, and exiled them into the dark. This is your shadow, not evil, not broken, but simply rejected. The abandoned self, left behind in your quest to be accepted. You were told to be good, to behave, to smile, to not take up too much space, to not make others uncomfortable. So piece by piece you disowned your wildness. You dimmed your light when it felt too bright. You silenced your truth when it felt too loud. And now the shadow doesn't disappear. It waits. It lives in the corners of your reactions, in the moments you snap, then regret it, in the envy you feel but cannot name, in the guilt that follows your joy. The shadow is not the enemy. It is the part of you that is still waiting to be loved. We think healing means becoming better, more spiritual, more positive, more peaceful. But sometimes healing means finally feeling the anger you've denied for years. It means crying for the child you were not allowed to be. It means looking at the part of you you swore you'd never become and saying, "I see you. You belong." The persona tries to protect you from your shadow. But what if your shadow is not here to destroy you? What if it's here to restore you? There is gold in the darkness, but you have to be brave enough to go there, not to fix it, not to shame it, but to listen, to ask, what pain are you carrying for me? What truth have I been too afraid to speak? When you turn toward your shadow, with tenderness, not judgment, something miraculous happens. You stop fighting yourself. You stop projecting your pain onto the world. You start to feel whole, not because you've become someone new, but because you've finally welcomed all that you are. The shadow isn't a flaw in your soul. It is your soul, calling back the pieces you've lost. There comes a moment, quiet, often unremarkable, when the noise of the world no longer fills the silence within. A moment when the things that once excited you no longer do. When the roles you've played so well begin to feel foreign, like clothes that no longer fit your skin. And in that silence, something ancient stirs, a whisper, a pull, a longing not for more, but for something real. This is the inner calling, the moment your soul begins to speak louder than your conditioning. And here's the paradox. It rarely comes with clarity. It comes with discomfort, with restlessness, with the aching sense that something is missing, even when nothing is wrong. You might feel it in the middle of a meeting, surrounded by success, yet feeling hollow. You might feel it after a celebration, when the applause fades, and you're left with an emptiness you can't name. Or you may feel it in the quiet of your room, where the silence suddenly becomes unbearable. This is not a breakdown. It's a breakthrough. The moment the soul begins to knock on the door you've kept locked for years. And what is it asking? Not that you become someone new, but that you return to who you've always been. The inner calling often speaks through pain. Pain is not the enemy. It's a messenger. It points to the wound that needs tending, to the parts of you that are tired of pretending. It says, you don't have to keep proving yourself. You don't have to be who they need you to be. You don't have to carry this alone anymore. And yet, do most people run? We fear the call, because answering it requires change. It requires letting go of who we think we are, of who others want us to be, of the illusion of control. But ignoring it doesn't make it disappear. It only gets louder. The longer you ignore your truth, the more life begins to unravel, not to punish you, but to wake you. Relationships break, careers crumble, certainties vanish, not because you've failed, but because you're being asked to feel again, to remember, to come home. And so the question becomes, will you answer the call? Will you allow the pain to guide you inward, not to destruction, but to rebirth? There is a path, invisible to the eyes, but unmistakable to the heart, that leads back to the place you've longed for all your life. Not a physical place, not a city or a relationship or a role, but a state of being, a return to yourself. The journey inward is not grand. It does not begin with trumpets or applause. It often starts with stillness, with silence, with the soft, trembling decision to stop running, to pause, to feel, to listen. You may sit alone on your couch, with the noise of the day behind you, and hear the quiet murmur of something ancient, something alive within. It says, I've missed you. I've been here all along. You don't have to earn your way back. This is the voice of the soul, gentle, unyielding, true. And here's the miracle. You don't need to find yourself. You only need to return to the parts of you you left behind. The child who felt deeply, the dreamer who believed, the woman who spoke without fear, the man who cried without shame. Coming home to yourself is not about becoming better. It's about becoming whole. You gather your pieces, not just the light but the shadow, not just the triumph, but the tenderness. You create space for your grief, your anger, your longing. You stop apologizing for your truth. And in doing so, you discover something extraordinary. Peace. Not the peace that comes from having no problems, but the peace that comes from no longer betraying yourself. You begin to move differently, speak differently, love differently, not because you learned a new trick or found a new mask, but because you finally feel safe enough to be you. This return is not a destination. It's a daily practice. Each moment you choose honesty over approval, stillness over distraction, compassion over judgment. You are walking yourself home, and perhaps for the first time, you realize you were never truly lost, just temporarily disconnected from the sacred truth that you are, and have always been, enough. There comes a moment, quiet, unmistakable, when you no longer need the world's permission to be yourself. A moment when something ancient rises from within, not new, not learned, but remembered. It is not an idea, it is a knowing, a return to something deeper than thought, older than words. It is the memory of who you were before the world told you who to be. You see, you were never meant to be a perfect image, not a role, not a mask, not a collection of expectations dressed as a personality. You were meant to be a living, breathing soul, flawed, fierce, tender, real. And remembering this, not just intellectually, but in your bones, changes everything. You stop chasing. You stop pretending. You stop shrinking to make others comfortable, because you remember you do not need to be liked to be whole. You do not need to be approved to be real. You do not need to be anything except true. The world may not always celebrate your truth, but your soul does. Every time you speak your needs, every time you honor your boundaries, every time you say no to what wounds you and yes to what heals you, you are remembering. It's not the world that needs to change. It's not the government, not your past, not your partner or your parents. It's you coming home. It's you reclaiming the voice that was silenced. It's you rising from within the ashes of your own forgetting. And in doing so, the world does change. Not because you fought it, but because you stopped letting it define you. You become rooted, present, alive, a lighthouse for others who are still lost in the fog. Because when one soul remembers, others begin to remember too. So let this be your prayer today. Not to fix yourself, not to fix the world, but to remember who you are and live from that truth. As Jung once said, the world will ask you who you are. If you don't know, the world will tell you. But today, you do know. And that changes everything. Take a moment. Breathe. Let all the words you've heard settle not in your mind, but in your soul. Now ask yourself gently, what parts of me have I forgotten in order to be accepted? What am I still running from that longs to be seen, not fixed? Who am I when I'm no longer trying to be who they want me to be? These aren't questions to be answered quickly. They are doors to a deeper home within you. If this message touched you, if it stirred something sacred inside, please consider supporting this work with a super thanks. Your gift helps keep this channel alive, helps us reach others who feel forgotten, and allows these messages to continue flowing to those who need them most. You are not alone on this path. You are part of something larger, a quiet revolution of souls remembering who they are. So subscribe if you haven't already, and watch the next video that's appearing on your screen now. It might be the very reminder your heart has been waiting for. Thank you for remembering with me and for choosing again and again to come home.